Good afternoon. You heard already about regenerative agriculture, that certain companies like to get products from regenerative agriculture. I will tell you something about regenerative soil management practices, but I want to start saying something about the natural environment and how the plant soil system functions in a natural ecosystem. Because natural ecosystems are mostly quite climate resilient due to the natural performance, just to the natural performance of the system. In a natural ecosystem, and you look to the plant soil system, you have two spatially separated types of soil biology. Firstly, you have in the litter layer decomposition of animal excrements and plant litter at the soil surface. It's always at the soil surface. It's not into the soil by soil-dwelling organisms and saprophytic fungi and bacteria. So that's a way that soil organisms are fed by the plant residues. But you have another type of biology deeper in the soil, and this is a symbiotic activity between plants and microorganisms in the rhizosphere, where the organisms receive some products from the photosynthesis. These are exudates that are put by the plant into the soil. So these microorganisms are fed by them, and in return, these microorganisms will enhance the nutrient availability for the plant. So this is symbiosis. So plants are continuously feeding the soil organisms, and that's the reason that we can speak about a living soil. And speaking about a living soil is you can also speak about soil health. The excretion of these photosynthetic products in the rhizosphere happens in the vegetative phase. So in the phase that the plant is fully active in photosynthesis, with green leaves, green stalks. But after the vegetative phase, there is a generative phase. The plants start blossoming and flourishing and ripening, and you get more carbon-rich material, plant material. And after the generative phase, this carbon-rich plant material is dropped on the soil surface. So that's in a natural environment how it functions. So by feeding the soil organisms with plant-derived or derived organic material, a whole soil food web is built up, starting with the first trophic level here. So the residues and the exudates that comes into the system, the soil system, that feed the bacteria and the fungi, but at higher trophic levels also the fauna, the soil fauna is fed. Protozoa and nematodes are feeding on fungi and bacteria, and then you have also higher organisms. You have also nematodes that feed on nematodes, and so you get a whole soil food web below ground, as you have also soil food webs above ground. And the more complete the soil food web is, the better also the nutrient retention and the nutrient cycling. So when you miss the, excuse me, let's go too fast. So when you miss the fungi in your system, you miss a lot of organisms in the soil food web. A third point is that in a natural ecosystem, you have biodiversity. You have a plant community, and you have also plant community succession. This maximizes the photosynthesis, and this also makes that the soil is permanently protected. And a third aspect is that you get natural mechanisms of plant protection due to the plant and soil organism species richness. So we can learn a lot about natural ecosystems and mimic these mechanisms of plant nutrition and plant protection in agroecosystems can help us a lot. In terms of processes, what we have above ground the leaf photosynthesis and the respiration. Below ground we have soil respiration from the root system, but also from the biota in the soil. By the activity of the detrivorous organisms, we have also nutrient cycling from plant residues. From the symbiotic organisms in the rhizosphere are able to mine nutrients from the soil parent material, which are not directly available for the plants. And we have organisms that fix nitrogen. We have plants that fix nitrogen, the Fabaceae, due to a symbiosis with Rhizobium bacteria. So, having in mind these mechanisms in natural ecosystems and processes, let's have a look to regenerative agricultural practices. Soil management includes 3 measures. It's about tillage, it's about fertilization, and it's about crop choice. And what should we do? In fact, we should reduce soil tillage while also in a natural at maximum. Also in a natural environment, you don't have tillage, mechanical tillage. So that means also that crop residues end up at the soil surface, where they will be decomposed by the detrivorous organisms in the litter layer. We prefer to use organic fertilizer because also these feed the soil life. Not only the fertilization, but also the green manuring. And green manuring by growing cover crops. And cover crops are crops that are grown in between the main cash crops. And also in that way you have a continuous, you don't have a fallow period, and you continuously are feeding the soil life. And another aspect is crop diversification by intercropping and species-rich cover crop mixtures, what leads to a lot of biodiversity. So somewhat more in detail, reduced tillage practices benefits a lot of things. So you have more soil moisture retention because you, by very superficial tillage, you disrupt the capillarity, and so you minimize the evaporation from the soil surface. In such a system, you have also more retention of nutrients. Why? The nutrients are more in the upper part of the soil profile, and because you don't incorporate your plant residues, you have less acidification, and acidification leads to nutrient leaching. You have also better drainage and aeration capacity because you have the big pores. They are not disrupted by the tillage, and big pores means you have a very good pore size distribution. You have big pores, you have small pores. Small pores keep the water, and the big pores make it possible that there is gas exchange, so aeration. Oxygen can enter the soil, and CO2 can be liberated. And you have also, by these big pores, a good drainage capacity. You also get a better soil bearing capacity for machines, for harvesting machines, for example. And you get soil retention by the, you have soil retention in the case you have a slope, you have less erosion. Then you have also possibly a better carbon sequestration potential by better routing of the whole soil profile. So then something about organic fertilization and cover crop management. It's very interesting to apply carbon-rich plant residues in fall, like it is also in nature. The leaves fall on the surface in fall, are dropped on the surface in fall, but also immature compost is carbon-rich and also straw-rich animal manure. Application of mature compost in spring is a good practice just before crop establishment. It's also better to apply frequently moderate doses it's better than to one-time high dosages. Combining fast and slow releasing organic fertilization products is also a good practice, because the combination of both makes that you have a very fast turnover or decomposition of the whole at the surface of the soil. It's composting at the surface of the soil. Then an important thing to minimize nitrogen leaching is to match nitrogen fertilizer form and dosage to the nitrogen mineralization potential of the soil and the potential nitrogen release from previously terminated cover crops. And then, and what's related to the reduced tillage practice is timely but utmost superficial incorporation of crop residues. So some examples of organic fertilization types. In the left corner, up corner, you see grass clover. Sometimes grass clover is in the crop rotation as a rest crop. It can be harvested for feeding as fodder for the cattle, but it can be also used as a fertilizer product on other fields. Then you have the more traditional use of farmyard manure, non-composted, but you can also compost farmyard manure together with carbon-rich material and get a locally produced compost, a farm compost. Then the third measure, this the crop choice or the crop diversification. So important to expand crop rotation by diversification of cash crops, but also by growing cover crops in between main crops. Application of intercropping. Intercropping is growing 2 or sometimes 3 crops at the same time in the same field. But also the use of multi-species, of species-rich cover crop mixtures. These are some examples that were applied at a farm nearby Ghent, Vee. You see here, excuse me, a combination of maize with a climbing bean. This makes also that this fodder makes this fodder also more protein rich. Then you have a cereal with a cereal crop with a field bean, and here you have a grass clover mixture. This is then an example of a multi-species cover crop mixture. So you have 4 crops that can fix nitrogen, the Egyptian clover, the field beans, the field peas, and the fodder veg, and then 3 others, the flax, phacelia, and sunflower. This biomax cover crop can be terminated when you buy a roller crimper in front of the tractor. And afterwards, you have a direct seeding of a new cereal crop. So this is really minimizing soil tillage and non-incorporation of plant residues. When the yield of the cover crop is somewhat lower, so you cannot get this mulch layer that is sufficiently thick to compete with the weeds. So then you have another sowing technique. You use another sowing technique. All these smart soil management practices, they will surely result in soil capital maintenance and in multiple ecosystem services, as retention of nutrients, good water management, retention of soil biodiversity, and presumably to be further investigated, they result in more nutrient-dense food, or food with a minor or without pesticide residues, because you have in these systems a good natural control of pest and diseases. And you might have also food with more intense flavor and odor constituents, and possibly also food with a longer shelf life. So with this, I want to make the connection with the nutrients and the food quality. Thank you for your attention.
I want to ask you, what of you, the speakers, well, first of all, sorry, congratulations, obviously, but I want to know if there is a network about soil regeneration around the world, if you are part or something like that. Yes or not? I don't know.
I think there are networks more in practice. So farmers and extension people also linked to the academic people. And sometimes this happened within European projects, but sometimes also outside these projects. So there is a big dynamic in all this stuff about agroecological practices, regenerative practices. Mm-hmm. So there is a big dynamic, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I ask you because we in our region, in all Latin America, but especially in Mesoamerica, we have a lot of people doing something like you. And we know it's very different because you are in Europe and we are in the tropics, and the soils are very different. But I think that could be interesting for ILSI, for example, could be an opportunity for us to be a platform to create something, to talk about the soils in a global perspective. That's it.
There is something called, Holly might know better than me, but in the UK we have the Soil Association that is kind of a community group, an academic and user farmer group, trying to lobby for better soil quality. And I've also seen research on what they call the critical zone, because everything we eat grows in the first meter of soil. And so that critical zone around the world is being eroded in different ways by different chemicals, different temperate climate changes and all those kinds of things. And I've seen that certainly some colleagues have been involved in work in China, developing critical zone observatories, but I don't know if it's a global thing.
There's a European consortium called Already. I can send you the details if you like. It's funded by a European grant, and it brings together a diverse range of living labs and also academic researchers that use these kind of, are interested in agroecology and these kind of agronomic processes. So I can give you their details, and it's basically just a whole network of European people that are interested in these kinds of things. It sounds like something you might be looking for, so I can pass on their details.
Yeah, I think our colleague from India. And hello.
Tianjian from ILSI Taiwan. Thank you for your message. Actually, this is new to me, that the plant itself actually produces some substance into the soil. And can you comment it, because I also heard about, I know some of the projects they use the special microorganism to produce the composites for the fertilizer. So can you comment which part is impact more about the soil quality, whether it's come from the fertilizer, the composites of the fertilizer, or the plant itself to enrich the soil?
I doubt I get it, your question completely, but you mean that introduction of microorganisms to put from out certain species of microorganisms to put them in the soil, so to improve the system.
The flora itself cannot help or impact the soil of the growth of the plant. I mean, you need the microorganism to
you need this whole flora and fauna, but sometimes you have lack of certain organisms and how to introduce them. Then you can grow certain plants that feed them. Then when sometimes you have a lack. You have not a complete soil food web because you have a lack of saprophytic fungi, and when you have a lack of and that's due to when you fertilize with a lot of salts and mineral salts, and also certain types of slurry, and when you have a lack of crops with carbon-rich residues, you will have a lack of saprophytic fungi. So you have just change your fertilization practice and your crop choice to introduce these types of organisms. And regarding the soil fauna, keeping the residues at the surface in your soil management practice by reduced tillage, you will increase the amount of rainworms and other enormously, and that will improve your porosity and your drainage capacity, your aeration, and this can be done in the short term. We always think that building soil quality is something for the long term. If you just change some practices, and it can start, soil improvement can start very fast. In my experience, in my research experience.
Biplav Nandi from ILSI, India. Thank you very much for your very nice presentation. It is really understood and appreciated very much that organic farming is very cost intensive, very much, from the regular farming. Am I correct?
You mean it can be labor intensive?
I mean cost intensive.
And cost intensive. I think it's more a low input farming system. So I think it's lower cost. It's labor intensive, but it can be more labor intensive. You have, for instance, you need mechanical weed control. Perhaps you have somewhat lower production, but you have lower cost and you have a better income for the farmer. You might have a better income for the farmer, but in that way.
Okay, if that be the case, then when you go to the market, we find that the product of organic farming produce is selling at much higher cost than that of the regular produce. So I was just wondering what is the mechanism involved and why that much cost is to be borne by a consumer to get a better produce if, according to you, it is not cost intensive in production-wise. Then what is the rationale behind, besides the nutritional inputs, whatever is available from that market? Because whenever you go to the supermarket or wherever, organic farming, the moment we touch, it is just hot potato. But you go to the other shelf, okay, it is reasonably okay. But we do not know the differences in nutrient parameters vis-a-vis the cost involvement in production. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not an economist, but I can answer somehow. These are market mechanisms. It's about also, it's how the market, when you have a scarcity or when you have less products, they will be more expensive. When you're a chain, when your market chain is less developed, it will be more expensive. So there are a lot of reasons that we have sometimes higher prices for these types of products. But this is not only about organic production. This is also the principles that I have showed that can be applied, that can be done. It can be applied by also conventional farmers, and they will benefit from that because they will sustain their soil quality, and they will,
And if we all do it, the price will come down, yeah?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Thank you all very much. I think we've had a really amazing conference.